The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
You have got to get up pretty early to go do something. We are the Alternative Dig Talk. With our mobile studios, we are redefining TV presentation just as technology is setting the pace. We are blending our approach with fresh, perspectively designed breakfast show, The Mighty Drive, informative and entertainment show, exclusive and live interviews.
We President Museveni wadde juzi namulaba apima akawunga kilo 2 tasobola kalya nini bwaba alya kilo 5 oyannema okuliisa eggwanga ne bwe limundekera.
Njagala kwebaza the Alternative Dig Talk etuwadde kano ka Mighty Drive era n'abatuwuliriza bonna abali ku mikutu njagala basaba mugende mu maaso n'okuwuliriza.
All given to you just a click away on your phone, tablet, laptop and smart TVs as we are streaming live on our social media platforms, on the road and on the go. We are the Alternative Dig Talk.
The world is at a critical moment of providing innovative alternatives as a means to create change.
As such, we have created a not-for-profit alternative mobile digital platform as a way to promote space for freedom of speech and expression to the unheard voices.
We know you believe in the cause and you can further it more by contributing to its sustainability in forms of internet data, fuel, and any other support you deem relevant.
Please support us with your contribution to Equity Bank account number 103-5201-607252 under the name Alternative Digital, or our mobile money numbers 0702 900076 or 0783 047785. Alternative Digital, real issues, real talk.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Yes, good morning. Masiza mutiano mwenna abatulaba n'abatuwuliriza mu Uganda n'ebitundu ebitolodde ensi yonna. Amakya amalungi twebaza Katonda olw'ekirabo eky'obulamu kyatuwadde okuba nti nate tuzeemu okusinkana olwaliro nga tubalamu, si lwakuba nti ffe abatuukiridde ennyo naye olw'okwagala kwe ekisa kye n'obuganzi oba oliawo kuba nti atuukiriza tambule wansi w'ekisa kye. Mukama tukwebaza olw'amakya amalungi. Mukose Arnold Anton nate tuyingiddewo bupya nga tutunuulira ensonga ez'enjawulo mu ggwanga, ensonga ezikutte omugamba oba omubabiro naddala mu by'obufuzi kuba akaseera kaliwo ka byabufuzi tukkirize tugaane emboozi esinga kati e Uganda ya bufuzi. Niba banga waliwo ensonga ezitukwatako ennyo mu kaseera kano abantu tebaziwadde nnyo birowoozo n'amatu, naye tuzze tulina omugenyi waffe olwaliro nga bulina kutwabasuubiza The Mighty Drive ku the Alternative Dig Talk. Tujja kubeerangawo buli lunaku tubatuuseeko abagenyi ab'enjawulo gwonominatinga gwe tunoonya betufunye nga tubaleeta. Ababaganye teba nsobi yaffe oba buzibu bwaffe, abasinga baba bize, abasinga baba n'ensonga ez'enjawulo ng'omuntu omala yenna. Lwali tulina omugenyi waffe omukyala Jackie Batamuliza. Ono mutunulizi wa nsonga za byabufuzi. Oyinza okumutunuliranga ayinza okuba nga kuggwa mulabanga omuto naye experience obukugu amagezi n'okumanya byalina mu nsonga z'ebyobufuzi bimufuula ow'enjawulo. Ate mukyala omanyifu wano ku Untitled Chapter twakkiriza nti omulembe gw'abakyala okubeera emmanju w'effumbiro gwakoma. Abakyala bangi balina obusobozi oboolyawo nga basinga n'abasajja abaali beegulumiza nti bamaanyi nnyo ba kitalo, naye abakyala balaze eggwanga n'ensi yonna nti bakola eby'amaanyi oboolyawo n'abasajja abamu ebalemye. Nkoze ne munnange naye kamusabe yeyanjule n'omugenyi waffe alyoke atubuuzeeko tutandikiraawo.
Amacha malungi mwenna abatulaba ku Mighty Drive. Amanya nze Lilian Luwedde, nyongera okubabuuzaako yonna gye musinzidde ababeerako buli lunaku okuva ku Monday okutuuka olwokutaano nga mutulaba mukola omulimu gwa ttendo nnyo era mwebale nnyo, mwebalire ddala. Gwe wenna atanamanya page code sanga eri The Alternative Uganda ku Facebook era genda mu search engine otikemu The Alternative Uganda ojja kubanga otulaba bulungi nnyo. Ne shows endala zonna ze wamisinga nazo osobola okubeera nga ate ogenda oziraba bulungi nnyo nnyini ddala. Mu kaseera kano ngenda kuwa omugenyi waffe omukisa atubuuzeeko era tweyanjulire n'oluvannyuma tugende mu maaso. Tusinze okulaba mukyala Jackie.
Twogera gye muli balamusizza mwenna batuwuliriza era nsanyusa okubeera ne bannange wano n'okuba nti bategese omulamwa guno gutukwatako ffenna ng'abavubuka. Kansuubire nti tujja kuba twaweereza bulungi. Tweyanziza.
Weewaawo eddoboozi lyeryo ekifaananyi kyekyo tuli basanyufu nti tukulina. Jackie, abatakumanyi Jackie yaani?
Mpitibwa Jackie Batamuliza, nkola n'ekitongole kye bayita Great Lakes Institute for Strategic Studies. Tuli mu bintu bya research ku bintu ebikwatagana n'ebyobufuzi. Tukwata ku nsonga za democracy, climate change and financing, cyber security and digital rights, ku by'amafuta n'ebya minerals, nanja gw'omuwendo n'ebirala bingi. Nze nkola nga research associate ku by'amafuta n'amanja g'omuwendo n'ate nga ndi mu department ya democracy and rule of law.
Abantu abasinga balaba nti the patriarchal society gituguliddemu ebiseera ebisinga. Analyst naddala ebyobufuzi badde basinga kuba baami nga bebayita ab'ekitalo. Gwe passion wagijjawa kuba amazima up to now abasajja this feminist life and aspect that you are trying to develop abasajja abasinga ekyagaanya okuyingira bawulira feminism awuliranga nti omukazi agala okwegulumiza. So which is not the case, and so wakikola otya to break the odd noba nti oyingidde abantu abasinga berowooza nti eyo line y'abasajja binoba nga oli mutubuzi wa byansonga nga ate oli mukugu obuuzibwako ensonga dda mu byobufuzi.
Ndowooza buli muntu kobe mwami kobe mukyala waliwo ebintu ebitukwatako ffenna. Ekinyiga omusajja kinyiga n'omukyala oluusi oba ekinyiga omukyala n'omusajja naye akyenyigiramu okulaba nti bakolawo or they think about a solution. So actually the very reason that I'm a woman is the reason why I have to pay attention to everything. Omukyala yazaala, omukyala yamanya obulumi bw'omwana, abasajja n'abakazi bonna baana ba mukyala. So it is disappointing okusanga omuntu ng'alowooza nti omukyala bw'aba agezaako okubaako naye kyagasa mu bintu bye mu nsi, it should be suppressed. That's extremely disappointing. Kubanga, yes, sometimes they accuse us of having minimal reason and more occupied with feelings and emotions, but it's from those feelings okumanya nti bwabaawo ekintu ekinyigiriza omuntu yenna waali omukyala yakiinako special interests. Yeah? But besides that, the personal attachment between a woman and the human race, I personally, I don't know, I think you called it breaking. I think generally it's known as breaking the ceiling. I'm not sure I've broken the ceiling, but I am a person who feels like what a man can do, a woman can do. It might not be, as long as it's intellectual. Maybe we can argue, and I may lose the debate on the physical things. But even the physical things, we've generated other things other than the manual way of doing things. So I can as well sit behind a machine and do what I must do, and deliver. Yeah, and deliver. To producing the results. You get it. Na yenze political lines are quite personal for me, because it's in politics that we get to touch lives, that we get to influence things that concern the people we care about. And that doesn't have to be your family. It doesn't have to be your tribe, it doesn't have to be your religion. It doesn't have to be your race. Buli muntu yenna waali. Omuntu yenna waali bw'aba akoseka. There's something we call reciprocal determinism in social science research.
What affects?
Yeah, the way when someone is affected, I mean, you can affect someone, but that person can also affect you. Yes. So banabantu ababa banyigirizibwa, they also have the power to press you back if you don't understand the impact of what you're doing. So it's very vital for everyone, whether woman or man, it doesn't matter, that fenna tubeerenga tulina amaaso gaffe ku bintu ebikwata ku mutima gw'omuntu oba kubeerawo kw'abantu. Ate the most problems we solve, the more stable our societies be, and the more competitive they become. Naddala mu nsi kati efuuse global arena. Okiraba. Kati, the more hands we have, the better for everyone. It doesn't matter who ends up in what place.
Abeefa bulungi, tuli ku the Alternative Uganda Facebook page and the Alternative Uganda YouTube page. You can follow us, subscribe, like, comment, share. Just right over there. We've seen talented, capable, and brilliant young ladies and women who may be due to societal limitations, fail to rise up. In your capacity, how do you advise, and how can they better their skills to at least reach either, even if it doesn't necessarily means breaking the ceiling, but at least reaching the ceiling?
So you see, what my view is, we are such a lucky generation. Tetulinganga bamama baffe, wabanga olina ekyokwogera wayitanga mu muntu akuliraanye, senga, maama wo, muganda waakusinga, ebintu bwe bityo. Waliwo ekintu kye bayita essimu. My approach to life is that use what's around you. Somehow wabaawo akuwulira, wabaawo akutegeera, wabaawo eyeewaayo to listen to what point you're making. And even if they never hear you, the people you're trying to reach or if you have an accurate judgment of what you're trying to address as a person, it doesn't matter who cares to listen to you, who cares to be the amplifier of your voice, or the facilitator of what what you wish to do. So I think even me being here, it's something that started from my contents on social media. Yeah, sure. That's how I met my colleague Norman. And so I encourage everyone, whether man or woman, that when you have the right evaluation of the tools that you have, and then intend good. Ensi yonna, it's out to search for what's good, and good is being yearned for. Somehow good is, it's hard to shun it because everybody needs it. So if whatever you do, it doesn't matter how difficult it is, it doesn't matter how impossible your start is, if your good persists, there is going to be a way, even in your individually, how you're trained. How I speak today is not how I spoke 5 years ago. And the more you let out content, the more you let out your person into the world, the more purified that person becomes, the more refined that person is. Bw'obanga nga oyina ekitone mu ggwe, obanga oyina ekintu ekirungi kyoyagala okuwa ensi,
you pull it out.
Yeah, pull it out. And it's not about who receives, it's also about you. It's also about you who is giving. Who is giving, exactly. In the responses, like I said, that aspect of reciprocal determinism, the way you're seeking to influence people is the way they're going to influence you. Today, I don't know how many people I'm speaking to. When I was posting things that my friend probably came across and thought they needed to be heard, I think I was addressing a couple of people. So it's just how it happens. If you can sustain the goodness in whatever, whether you're doing it or saying it, there is someone you're influencing, and that person is going to also influence other people. So back to the question you asked me, how do we create more people? It's about acknowledging that you aren't alone, and it matters how you speak to other people, it matters what you say to other people, and whatever energy you let out, it's also going to return to you. So be deliberate about letting out the good energy.
All right. Jackie, you've been heard in several platforms and forums agitating and maybe condemning the habit of the young generation of spending more time on TVs and moreover on undevelopmental programs.
Yes.
And also you condemn the government for letting such programs to be aired in hours and times that are not meant for such programs. Who determines which content and when? And why do you come out always to criticize such decisions by individuals and government?
Actually, there is a legal framework to that entire arrangement, but I want to move away from what the legal framework is. I mean, we have UCC that determines what we consume and all these things, but UCC is made of people like us. So the content we have, I think and believe that it is informed by the priorities of the people that sit in the places of authority that determine what we consume, which is the primary challenge. And the primary solution, therefore, is how do we, as young people, cause the people who make these decisions, who determine what we consume as young people, realize that there is need for change of what we consume. How do we do that? That's not a debate I can perhaps
For today.
yeah, maybe not a debate for today, or even something that I'm enough for, or you and I are enough for. But there's something we need to be alive to. With media is not just a business tool. It's also something that births our souls as people. Media ezaala emyoyo gyaffe, ate emyoyo gyaffe kye tuli ffe ng'abantu. Ojjukira wano emyaka ebiri actually 3 emabegakaawo abantu bwe battiŋŋananga wawuliranga waliwo ab'ebijambiya waliwo the more we broadcast that, the more we multiplied crime.
True.
The moment the broadcast stopped, yet this is not to suggest that it stopped because we stopped broadcasting it. There were people who got in charge of the security apparatus and changed the status at the time. But when it stopped, people stopped killing. When
the regular broadcasts reduced.
Yeah, when the crime probably reduced and there was no more broadcast to it, there was no multiplication anymore. At that time, I don't know how many. I think we had were they 12 according to our research, about 12 crime groups just within Kampala, and everything was attributed to unemployment, to do to this and that. Yes, those aspects are there, but there are things beyond our monetary abilities, things that are created by virtue of influence. You get that? But also we must be alive to what's changing in the rest of the world, because we're not an island. We are a country amidst 100 other countries, and we're having a lot of other powerful countries monitoring what people consume, monitoring. Yes, and that's what I think UCC does, or is charged to do. But then UCC has to be alive to how do they be in charge of media houses and make possible evolution of our society, positive evolution of our society. Because we young people are supposed to be the feet of our country in time. The feet, ebigere byensi yaffe in time. You get it? We have a team like the Museveni team, Besigye and Monta and all these, the big shots in politics.
Which is fading off.
Which is fading off. But then what are we? Who can define what we are?
As of Katumba.
Exactly. Bobi Wine and all these guys. Who can define us? What defines us? Whoever determined what we become. It's very positive that we focus on socio-economic transformation and all these things. But look at us. We are in the middle of political, challenges and difficulties. But are they all about socio-economic issues?
No.
They're more than that. They're about the souls that we are. They're about what we have been created to be internally. I usually say to those that listen to me that if this country broke down today, like I've had many people insinuate on maybe social media or national television, it won't just be because we have a political problem or that we have a poverty problem. It will also be because we have a character issue. Things like issues of corruption, they are more than political. They are also about character. It's one thing I like this phrase that to want is human. For example, now specifically on the question of corruption, to want or desire something is human. But to know what to take or to know that something's not yours to take, that's character. So if this country, with the excuses of corruption being the reason why we are mingled up, or we are turning against each other the way we are, I think that's a minor excuse. And had we had proper television content, because television, radio and all these things are the things that feed our society. It's not We go to church a couple of days, couple of hours every day. My generation has spent a very few...
Some go for 2 hours a week.
Exactly. My generation has very minimal time with parents. So we've been raised by media. So how about the media assumes the parental role? Not just in terms of this program is suitable for these young people, this program is, but be alive to other mature, responsible and responsive sort of content that raises our awareness and political character, because they exist. There's a lot of content on things like the History Channel, the National Geographic, things that would apply to our, that would make our judgment. Today, I think the international community is battling with, or actually acknowledges that there is need for facilitating critical inquiry. Yeah? But for example, now that's just one aspect. So how does UCC or the media houses facilitate critical inquiry? That's not something you sit in class and teach someone. It's something that people need to see models. I mean, we have to generate a way or come up with a way in which you create models to that. Because naturally majority of the people follow. Everything we are aspiring to do, like we are fighting with socio-economic transformation, which is perfectly okay. We can also facilitate these things, political awareness, history. Today, I don't know how many documentaries we have about Uganda's politics produced by Ugandans. You know why? We don't have a culture of appreciating where we are coming from. But it's our responsibility to know that. There's an African proverb that says that if a tree without roots, what happens to it? It can't live, it can't be. But those are our roots. But all our history, all our lives are being taught us by some other people. But how many historians do we have? How old are our universities?
You don't even appreciate their work, even if one author has a book.
Exactly.
You don't buy it, you don't read it.
Exactly.
Or if you read it, you say, upload it online so that we can get it.
Things like that. And then the other aspect is the very limited culture of appreciation of knowledge. That is why we are consumed with entertainment. This is why in Uganda today, people aspire to two careers mostly. Being an artist or being a politician. But if you're not appreciative of knowledge, how do you become an excellent politician or leader? The ones who are aspiring to being artists. So to come to a place where we have, a minimal appreciation of alternative, can I say, services or alternative spaces for national service. These are the bottlenecks we are facing in national progress. And I feel like we have to be alive to the reality that we aren't the only people in the world. Sure. We have to be alive we have to deliberately determine where do we want to go, how do we go there, how do we shape, because people are dependent on leadership, on how they evolve, how they become, and then the leadership is in charge of how do you create the nation in the people. And then they also determine what kind of nation do we create. Yeah, so we have to be alive to that. Whether that comes from the youth persuading the politicians to be alive to these things, or it comes from the politicians down to us, I don't think it really matters, but we must apply ourselves to it. The other thing I really want to be clear about is the thought that we've made politics too rewarding. I'm not even sure it's so rewarding because the payments in politics are not that serious, except that we abuse offices.
We are just thieves.
Yeah, we abuse the offices, but it's been too amplified that people feel like that's the only place to be, and we've brought it to a place where it's a do or die issue, which is a danger. But it also comes from the place that the other careers are not as appreciated or acknowledged. What if we created spaces where we create a scenario, for example, where people feel like whether I am a teacher, whether I am a doctor, I'm as important as the parliamentarian, I'm as important as a lawyer, I'm as important as the judge. So we teach people to attach extra value to what they do, because the president is because of a teacher, the doctor is because of a teacher.
I am because of a teacher.
And we are because of a doctor. When you're offended, you go to the lawyer. So we all have a role to play. But how do we get them to be appreciated? Beyond even, we might never pay them equal money. That's okay. But then how do we make them
feel
that
they're loved and they're appreciated?
That their contribution is something we can't do away with. What they are is as important to us as every other player in society.
Jack, right over there, before I give my host the microphone, you sounding as if you calling for more regulations from UCC to guide the media. Yet we would have like more of these regulations. For example, we have OTT, we have cyber and computer misuse acts. We have several in that line. But should we think that it's just the weakness of the one who are supposed to enact or to practice, to make the laws work, or the media practitioners that seem to pay deaf ears to such regulations and guidelines that were issued by UCC?
I actually think UCC is doing well in terms of following what's written. However, I think what's lacking is the intention to facilitate the life of the country. Not in terms of security. I think they've tried in as far as that's concerned, but I mean in cognitive development, in intellectual growth, in appreciation of the changing world, not just socially. They've done excellently in as far as social transformation is concerned, and maybe even economic transformation, but political growth, political maturity, I think it's still lacking. And we are not suggesting that they politicize society. We are suggesting that they inform society so that whatever people have to become, whatever people have to be, whatever people have to do, they can acknowledge or know that there is another world here, and there's nothing that's going to happen to us that's going to happen for the first time. That's what we who read appreciate. You're able to travel through time by use of knowledge. You're able to travel through geographies by valuing knowledge. So what I am actually asking for is, can we have, whether it's regulations or whatever it has to be, that facilitates knowledge as well? I'm not saying that they put an end to entertainment. Entertainment is very necessary, because not all of us can be, we don't all have to be the same thing. It's very important that we be very different people. But I believe we can have many other inventors. If we had documentaries that tell stories of inventions people who have invented stuff. I believe we can have professors become knowledge bases if we had TV programs that promoted the value of knowledge. Maybe history, maybe how nations changed, maybe how empires became, maybe how empires fell. It's all knowledge. And I think that way we would be able to control misinformed and reactive approaches to our social political existence, and we begin to be proactive, be able to go ahead in time and preemptively deal with things and foresee things and predict things. Right now, I feel like much of what happens to us, we simply react. But that's because there's no mechanism of facilitating human social memory, societal memory, social political memory. Some of these things I see when I'm having discussions with my fellow young people. So I feel like besides the economic transformation, the social transformation, which I think we've done, our media houses have really done good in as far as that is concerned, I think we need to be deliberate about knowledge facilitation.
But Jack, much as you're raising pertinent concerns and issues, but don't you think that things like historical programs, geographical programs were destroyed long ago, maybe by the government, maybe deliberately, when they banned civic education, they banned political education in schools, where maybe students and pupils from as low as lower classes were being taught the history, and such history could recall, and maybe by the time they reach in higher levels, they appreciate the history. By now, everything when you listen to the president is always, when we came to in the government in 1986, portraying that Uganda began in 1986. Don't you think that the destruction of our history and what you are agitating for was destroyed deliberately by the government? And if you believe so, what should be done? Or if you don't believe in such narratives, where did we go wrong?
I beg to differ, and I'm telling you this because I was born and raised and educated in Uganda, and I graduated in international relations and diplomacy, which is purely a political course. Political education is I don't think it was ever really deliberately controlled. And even if there's anything that suggests that, maybe it was done at a stage when it needed to be done, in the judgment of the political leaders at the time. Because there was a time I think we are extremely fragile. I mean, there's been levels of fragilities. Even now we're in a fragile position, but I know we have been worse positions before. But back to the question you asked. The politics I know. My school just introduced me to it. My phone taught me the rest. You get it?
Yes.
And I don't know if I consider myself any kind of a threat. And I have to say that it still goes back to the other aspect we started with of character. What you know, how much do you know, and what do you want to use it for? Of course, if your character pushes you to want to use it to abuse other people's spaces and freedoms and being, you're going to cause a danger to everyone else. But if you're going to make it, productive to everyone else, I think you're going to have support. But besides all that, and the thought that the president is always talking about 1986 because he thinks that's when Uganda started, I don't think that narrative is accurate. Yes, he says that, and everybody has the liberty to assume the meaning of it. But we know that he has been alive and in the Uganda's politics for over 4 decades or 5 decades, which means Uganda existed before that. So I think for the line that when we came in 1986, I think that's when I think we misunderstand him. I think what he tries to communicate is that when he became like practically involved in the becoming of Uganda as an individual or as his team. So I believe that it's inaccurate to think that he thinks that Uganda started in 1986. 1986 he just practically started solving the things that the problems that Uganda was plunged into before. But that's besides the point. To emphasize and to probably draw lines between the last question you asked me and my earlier submissions, we can no longer look away. Even if the government deliberately controlled political education and whatever the narrative is, even if it's accurate, we can no longer look away because we are plunged into the international politics of things. And if we have to create a defensive population, we have to make it knowledgeable. Because actually today's politics is what we used to fight with guns, now we fight with reason. And if reason is not informed, a country is bound to collapse. So it's in our interest. I mean, they can, whoever is in charge of determining what we watch in as far as facilitating political and knowledge evolution is concerned, whoever is in charge of that can apply themselves to studying what they allow us to study. But as long as we are studying it, it's very vital. Because the issues that the president's generation experienced had their art of solution, which is different from ours. The things that, for example, the generation of, maybe the 40-year-olds now, actually, I think that generation has been more invested in socio-economic transformation. My judgment is that the president's generation greatly invested themselves in political recovery and political life of Uganda. The generation of the maybe 45s, to the 45s today, I think has been invested in socio-economic transformation. Ours has more complex issues. And the fundamental aspect to our survival and how we take the country forward, or how long the country has to survive in the mix and the arrangement of the international politics, is to facilitate their cognitive abilities. As I have once mentioned, you probably have come across that, because I think it was still on the Alternative, one of those platforms that Alternative created, was that there was a time we fought wars in the fields. But now war, and I'm talking about war in the spirit that war is very pertinent, is very much part and parcel of politics. But it's about how do you make subjects out of populations? How do you get people to submit to you? And or submit to your will. I think the term will is very important that I mention it, because that's what everything is about. So many years ago, we used to have people come to take over nations or fight with nations because they want to take minerals and resources. But today the primary resource is human capital. It's human capital, which means that we have to be very measured, very deliberate about the quality of the people that we produce or the quality of people that we make, that we manufacture. What matters today most is not the mineral, it's not those make economies go on. But now that we are shifting to tech, it's the mental abilities of the populations that matter. And by tech, I mean our communication is facilitated by tech. You know about me not because you had seen me physically, it's because I wrote something by the help of a phone. That's how invaluable our time, or how different our time is. At that time, at the time of our elders, if you had to speak to someone, you had to walk or get on a bus and spend days, or get on a plane and spend days. Now I can speak to the entire human race.
But Jackie, when you talk of using the current atmosphere or of technology, maybe to change the whole world, maybe to at least to move a bit from the times where we used to communicate via people, where we used to communicate maybe via structured means, to the modern way of communicating, maybe the digital world, like as of now, digital. But this just at a smaller percentage. By statistics, when you look how many people can access internet, how many people can access TVs, how many people can access smartphones to get such information. By statistics, this is the smallest number, because even one person has 3 smartphones, or they're all categorized as smartphones. Yes, but now, how about my sister, my brother, my uncle, who is deep down there in Mayuge, that can't access what you're accessing, can't communicate the way you're communicating, however much he might be having some information or content to deliver, or he might be willing to get some content from Jackie, but he or she cannot.
Let me show you something that people miss. The aspect of how many has things that it affects in our society, such as maybe voting or things like that. But there's something about society that's called hierarchy. You and I today, we are probably 3-5 people in this van. And there are probably 2,000, or maybe one time there'll be 1 million views of this video. That is informed by hierarchy. Me, right now I have the opportunity or the chance to meet you physically. And what we are doing today is between five people, but it's going to speak to thousands of other people. That's the same way it's going to trickle down to the people in the village. It doesn't have to be today. It's going to go in form of the character influence, the knowledge influence that's going to be transmitted by virtue of someone listening to me and you. I am not in America, but I am aware of everything that's happening in the States. On a daily, every minute. You understand? So the whole idea is not how many people can we touch at this very minute. The idea is, can you apply all the other aspects attached to this? There's the aspect of time. there's an aspect of numbers, there's an aspect of ability to share. So it's not true like that the person in Mayuge is very cut off from us. It's not entirely true. Because whether the person in Mayuge ever meets me or ever hears me, somehow what I'm doing or what I'm saying is going to get to them by the power of influence. You've heard about the people like socialites. They probably don't even know there's a district called Mayuge. But there's someone fighting so hard to dress like they dress. There's someone who is manufacturing a dress to make sure that someone in Mayuge...
matches with...
Someone in Kampala, someone in Hollywood. That's the power of tech. And that's why we have to facilitate cognitive abilities, development, judgment, and capacities.
So my question comes in. We are seeing social media is growing. The use of social media. We have a lot of youths who are using social media to do things that are not even productive. What do you think has to be done in sensitizing them to do things that are productive via social media? Because some of them are using social media only for cyberbullying, for harassing others. What really needs to be done? Because we are seeing the young generation is the one that is using social media most.
I think it still comes back to how do we raise them to acknowledge that they're not just on social media. They are speaking and creating people. There's this culture that we have as people, I think, as a country, but also I think I've seen it all over in African countries, with the exception of a few countries. We don't know how to accurately make judgment of the value of things that we do. Some people have a phone, and in a day they could make an unbelievable amount of money by the use of the phone. And there's someone who is going to use it to destroy someone's soul or spirit through cyberbullying. It still comes down to how do we awaken people to the realization that you have a tool for good and you can make someone out of yourself just using that tool. But those are the voices that we have that are absent. I think it starts with a conversation. And then we create models for that. Models in the sense that can we probably share experiences of people whose lives have been made by the use of social media. I mean, positively. Then these teams or guys that we have who are like negative influence or bad users or negative users can be made to feel cheated every time they misuse the tool. So I think it goes back to the aspect of reward. Can we be able to smartly apportion reward to good? Same thing we're talking about politics and the arts and laws and rather lawyers and teachers and things like this. We have that, those voices are very absent, I think, in our society. So, but I think we have a lot of examples to use, local and internationally, of people who have made good use of social media, and it's become both economically and socio-politically productive at an individual basis. Yeah.
Yes. Abali yaffe abalungi tukyagenda maaso. Tubuzayo dakika 6 tugende mu kuwumulamu katono nnyo. Tukyalina omugenyi waffe Jackie Batamuliza. Ono mutunuulizi wa nsonga za bukulembeze. Yaliko Katikkiro wa Buganda yatugambye nti politics si bya bufuzi wabula bya bukulembeze. So kati nakiyize nange ngezaako okulaba nti newala okikozesa ekigambo bya bufuzi. Omufuzi tawuliriza abantu, omufuzi talondebwa abantu, omufuzi yoyo akaka abantu bakoleyo kyayagala. So nange nakiyize okwesa ekigambo ekyo abanabyabufuzi. So ono mutunuulizi wa nsonga z'abakulembeze, era nga tutunuulira abavubuka balinawo ekifo mu bukulembeze bw'ebiro bino, bye bakola bya bukulembeze oba bye baba basuubiza nti gwe mukulembeze w'enkya, enkya tannatuuka, ye enkya etuukadde. Tunuulira tekinologi ono bamukozeseza bati, abayambi atya okuba nti oba oli awo bongera ettoffaali limu abiri ku kuzimba eggwanga. Nga tunagenda mu kuwumulamu katono nnyo, njagala Jackie otubuulire, do you think oba olowooza nti tekinologi ono alina kyayambyekoko mu kukyusa endowooza y'abavubuka oba omugigi guno mu nsonga z'ebyobukulembeze?
Ekyo nkikiririzaamu nnyo, ate nze mu kulaba kwange wabaddewo ebirungi bye tujje mu tekinologi ono ne mu ngeri y'obukulembeze. Actually si buli muntu ali ku social media nti agikozesa bubi, ate waliwo n'abantu bangi abawuliriza oba abayize n'abakyusiddwa social media. So and not just in politics, ne mu bulamu obwa bulijjo, ne mu nfuna. Mikwano gyange mingi ebiseera ebisinga bali ku YouTube bagoberera abantu nga Jack Ma, bano bannagagga b'ensi. Nakugamba nti nze ebyo esagala social media ku social media sagalako bintu bya bufuzi, njagalako bintu bya nfuna, ate obulamu bwabwe bukwatiddwako mu ngeri y'enjawulo. So nze ndowooza nti ekyuma kino oba omugigi gwaffe gukwatiddwako nnyo ne tekinologi ono, naye nga tulina okukola some sort of investment, social investment in what value we attach to it. We are capable of doing miracles, actually, if we were enabled to view it in a positive way. Tukyali nsi ey'ebyenfuna ebikula obukuzi. Waliwo empisa obuyisayisa obubi bw'olaba ku social media n'olaba nti if the person knew better, you know, the thing about social media is that it's a multiplication tool. There's a time, I don't know, I need to remember what story was trending. Omuntu omu nawandika ku social media nagamba nti naye nze, actually kyali kitu kya buwemu. I remember it was a story naye nga ya buwemu. Nagamba naye nze kanza alaba ebintu by'obuwemu, nze agoberera abawemu ku social media oba n'abalala bwe mutyo. And the debate went on. I think it was on Twitter. The debate went on, and most people seemed to agree that we tend to have whatever we feel is overwhelming or whatever we feel is abundant in the people we follow depends on the network of people you're with. Netulaba nti bw'obeera Kenya waliwo emboozi zaabwe ziri a bit different. Bw'obeera mu Uganda emboozi zaffe ziri different. Ate n'engeri gye tuzoogerako nazo ziri.
Nagwe bannabyabufuzi emboozi za njawulo, n'ebyenfuna emboozi za njawulo, ne serebu emboozi za njawulo.
Bw'oba ogoberera abali mu US, their conversations are different. So sometimes bino ebintu obuyisayisa buno obubi bubeerawo as a result of the network, the social network that the person has. And it takes another eye or another voice okuyamba oyo omuntu namulaga nti, you know, this platform is different from, or the space where you are is different from the things you're acquainted with. Open up and learn something different. And I think there's some people that have been able to succeed at this, influencing people positively and making them leave their old behavior. Like I said earlier, omujiji gwange guleredwa media mostly, because I think in our time, our parents we were born in a time when capitalism was gaining ground, which means that they had to work to make us, to facilitate our lives. We had to provide for us and things like that. And there's no two way about it. So inevitably, TV ends up ngayirira abana over social media today. There was a time I think I was with a group of parents, and then they were debating how extraordinary the questions their children ask them are, and they had never observed that. I mean, I just mentioned, and they said, but I can be in Uganda, but when my parent is in US, and how does that happen? My parents are not here, but maybe there is a show I like on TV. Maybe there is a YouTube channel I subscribe to that I watch most of the time. So my mind is not going to think like you, my mom, my biological mom. My mind is being acquainted and being shaped by another personality altogether. And that's the world we are in, and that's why earlier on I was advocating and asking that UCC becomes alive to these things. So we are a people in a globe, and anybody can be my sister, anybody can be my what my mother can be or what my father can be.
Wenyini abalefa olungi tugenda kumulamu katono nnyo tukomawo kati tuyingire ensonga ey'obukulembeze kuba ono mukugu mutunuulizi wa nsonga z'ebyobukulembeze era abadde mwebuuza twagala wali wenyini ate bali tulina okuzimba nti ebiseera ebisinga tuleeta abagenyi ne batunuulira just line emu naye tulina omukisa nti ono is gifted, mukama yamuwa ekirabo nti is diverse, buli angu gy'omuyisaamu alina insights ng'ate sitakoma kumbi kuba insights, but she's too intelligent, talented and informative. So bwe tubeera nayo ffe tulinga abali ku luzzi ensonga kyolaba nti buli tugwetambulira tugezaako nnyo okulaba nti tujjawo ekinyusi, naye nga tukomawo tugenda kutunulira ensonga z'ebyobukulembeze typically vis-a-vis nammwe ab'omugigi guno tulabe mumakinga babaleka oba abalese balata baffe bajajja baffe. So tukyali ku The Alternative Uganda nga page ne YouTube The Alternative Uganda era nga channel, naye nga program The Mighty Drive, station The Alternative Digital. Katufune ku lwendo lw'amalombe tukomewo.
The Alternative Digital. Real issues, real talk.
This is a time where there is a lot of violence. For example, police brutality. A lot of you are being beaten up, the voters, the people from the opposing side. So election is just that period where we get free money.
An election is a process through which people choose to vote a person or a group of people to hold an office of leadership.
Did you know that you have the power to determine on who leads you?
Did you know that your vote has the power to change your society and the country at large?
Dear citizens, please vote wisely.
Don't vote money, but vote issues.
Dear parents, I can't make any decision.
Your choice determines my future.
Fellow students, exercise your right. Go and vote.
Abafumbira mwese muzaze tugende tutera akaruru.
Abanya-Uganda mwena mugende mutera akaruru.
Bashange face yihule kucha hodole.
Abantu nyana mujje tugende tukome.
Genda olonde.
Your vote.
My vote. Our vote is our present and our future.
The world is at a critical moment of providing innovative alternatives as a means to create change.
As such, we have created a not-for-profit alternative mobile digital platform as a way to promote space for freedom of speech and expression to the unheard voices.
We know you believe in the cause and you can further it more by contributing to its sustainability in forms of internet data, fuel, and any other support you deem relevant.
Please support us with your contribution to Equity Bank account number 103-5201-607252 under the name Alternative Digital, or our mobile money numbers 0702 900076 or 0783 047785. Alternative Digital, real issues, real talk.
Hey Ugandans, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Dewa Kiki, the Deputy Defense Spokesperson and actually the Deputy Spokesperson for the Uganda People's Defense Forces. I was hosted on Alternative Digital. I encourage all Ugandans that this is the way to go. Always watch, participate, give your views and ask questions on Alternative Digital. Digital, the way to go.
The Alternative Digital. Real issues, real talk.
Mukulikireyo ddala mukuwumuloko kwe tubaddemu bakyalina ffe wano ku Mighty Drive. Amanya nze Lilian Luwedde ndi ne munnange Mukose Arnold Anthony n'omugenyi waffe omukyala Jackie Batamuliza. Tutunuulidde ebintu bingi nnyo mu kitundu kyaffe ekisoose era nga tunzise twogera ku nsonga ya media. Abantu abamu bakozesa media olw'ebintu ebirungi era abamu bangi bakifunyeemu ng'omugenyi waffe bw'atugambye, naye ate waliwo abagikozesa obubi. So awo wennyini ku nsonga eyo bwe mbadde nfunidde ekibuuzo okuva eri mukwano gwange. Ambuuziza n'agamba nti omulimu gwa abantu abakozesa obubi media, mulimu gwa bannabyabufuzi okuba nga ba advising abantu bano okukozesa obulungi media, oba kitandikira ku ffe nnyini. Kubanga abamu balowooza nti mulimu gwa bakulembeze okuba nti baba advising okuba nga bakozesa obulungi media. Is it our role or it's the politicians' role to advise us on that?
I think you can say it's both, but it's best that it's done by us. You know, we've come to a place in time where power is no longer political. Anybody, anywhere can exercise power and can exercise influence. Yeah? And we have to be alive to that. I don't and wouldn't want this to be left to the politicians. Then it looks like they're controlling us, which might arouse negative energy from the people that they're trying to control. Yes, they have a role in the event that the ordinary Jackie is not able to change the mind of the social media user, then the political or rather the legal power can come in. However, I think it's always best that we exercise this notion that we believe that we are the rulers of our society as a people. So anybody anywhere should be able to convince or develop the skill to convince another person, because by the time you get through the legal system and whatever else it takes to change the mind or change the behavior of another person, it has cost more than necessary. Monetarily, if you take someone to court, that's time, that's moral pressure, that is emotional questions rising, it's all these things. So I think it's best that even us ordinary people begin to look at ourselves as influencers, as people capable of delivering what a government is expected to deliver. I think the difference between our influence and the government or the political actors' influence is the legal attachment. But what if we can develop our moral authority? That when you raise a voice about something, someone is able to listen to you and act accordingly, because your voice convinces them even beyond what the constitution or the law says, because that's very possible. Yeah. So my take is that it can be both, but I would prefer that if we can be able to develop ability and skill to take on these sort of influences at person to person level. Yeah.
Yes, tukyagenda maaso n'omugenyi waffe omukyala Jackie Batamuliza, mukugu mutunuulizi wa nsonga za byabukulembeze. Tuli mu mbeera ya kalulu kakutte wansi ne waggulu ku mitendera egy'enjawulo, kuva ddala ku president paka ku kansala ow'omuluka. Buli muntu awenja, anoonya, ayagala kulondebwa nga omukulembeze. Gwe tuli awo. Twagala kumanya ye nga alinako amaaso agasinga ku gaffe kutunuulira ensonga ze ebiri ewala. Manyi kati newankubadde muntu naye alinga sekanolya, yalaba ebiri mu kibuga ffe ate atubuulira nti anze kyenengedde ekiri mu kibuga mwe temujja oba mujje tugende. So twagala kumanya alaba nti abavubuka beetabye mu nsonga z'ebyobukulembeze positively, negatively, meaningful, oba just mere participation anti mulembe gw'abavubuka. So twagala tumanye gwe bw'olaba abavubuka engeri gye beetabyemu mu nsonga zino ez'obukulembeze, yeeyo embeera gye basaanidde okubyenyigiramu oba mu buzeemu, oba nga mu buzeemu, gwe biki byolaba bibuzeemu?
Well, bwe mba ndaba ebyobukulembeze bye tulimu leero, kimpa essanyu nti tulina space ng'abavubuka. Space big enough that we can even manage to have a candidate who is a youth take part in the presidential race. And anyway, there are a couple of them. There are several of them. Yes, the participation has been positive. Kubanga waliyo banja abalondeddwa even those phases of elections we came through, like local councils and things like that. And then our constitution provides for youth participation. I'm very glad about that. I don't know if you want me to restrict this to the electoral period or the political elections, or also leadership in other avenues.
No, leadership in other avenues, because it doesn't stop only in politics. Exactly. Much as right now we are in that season, but leadership is broad, it's beyond politics.
Yeah, I think I'm very positive. My feelings are very positive in the sense that there is an awakening to the sense of, to the aspect of leadership in our country. Be it business, be it in activism, be it in politics, be it in our social culture settings, we have young people. That's very important. What's I think is still lacking is the vision of the youth. I don't feel like we have a definition of who we are. what we are aspiring to. Everybody's invested in picking out what the government has probably not achieved, or but that's very unfortunate. That's a negative bit about the story of our leadership as young people. There's this mistake that Africans make of I don't even think we deliberately follow the United Nations. Whatever another part of the world suggests that we be awake to is what we consume. But that's how we've been overrun all the time. If I can step back in history on behalf of my generation, but also in the spirit of being Ugandan, we have had phases, and in my judgment, that on each of these phases, we failed because we were not alive to the evolution of that time. Let me start with independence. The 1950 and the 1945, the U.S. by political arrangement or international political arrangement takes after Britain. So, and then to facilitate Europe's political recovery, they demand that Europe lets go of their colonies. Somehow in the 1960s, the world becomes independent, or is granted independence. The 1970s, the Western powers and the Eastern powers are fighting between capitalism and socialism. We have, in Uganda, we experienced a coup to that respect. In 1980, when the coups had their socio-economic and political negative impacts, our economies are on their knees. So the IMF and World Bank decide, for us to give you recovery packages, you must adapt such and such traditions, referred to as structured adjustment programs. We consume those, and then we carry the debt burden. The debt burden becomes another social-political burden, or political economy, a burden in terms of the political economies of nations. And then we have civil wars through the 1990s as a continent. In 2000, we have the war on terror. Now, the point I'm trying to show you is every stage or every decade, there is an international political problem that's embedded in our international relations. And each time we fail to be awake or alive to it, we are overrun. It's the same thing we are engaged with today. This is not something that is from Museveni to determine. It's not meant to be, like I said, we the youth are like the feet of our country in time. So it's very vital that we develop a culture as a people, that there are mechanisms through which we determine what is a threat to our country, what is a threat to the children we have to bear, who are like our future, just as we are the future of the Musevenis and the other people after him. You understand? And I think that's how a country is supposed to be sustained. That's what the Americans do. That's what the British do. That's what all these people do. So I feel like it's very positive that we are very involved. All our legal settings and political traditions permit our participation. And we don't have to be frictious about it, because some of these things we probably are not even capable of fathoming them. And even if we could fathom them, we probably don't have the technical capacity to carry them on. But we can be organized enough to share them with these parents of ours, so that we have mutual respect and mutual trust in how we secure national progress. But I feel like that has been absent. And I beg to be permitted to say that I don't think any of the generations before us were capable of doing that. They didn't have the the moral training. They didn't have the and the moral training, I mean that their social political pursuits were totally different from ours. Their privileges were different from ours. In fact, I'm not even sure they really had any except having a family and a society and a country to call home. But our experience is a bit different. I think it's something that we should cherish very much, that we have the space to think, we have the technology to assist us, we have the tools to make us know better, and also the tools to transmit positive energy, much as sometimes we abuse that. We have so we have to assume this leadership, and we don't have to wait for political leadership. We don't have to wait for political power. Today, I don't know how many people are influenced by bloggers, YouTube users, these shows that are not even on any nation's national television. They're just on social media. Yeah. So how about we invested ourselves in that, but to be and still be so careful not to want to advance our interests in a way that is selfish. Yeah. In other words, if you assume the responsibility of leading a people or a following of whatever size, if you have the privilege to lead them to a certain direction, how do you as a person ensure that it's not mixed, it's not in any way negative, and without having to be followed or controlled or regulated or things like that? Yeah. So how do we enhance that? Because that's our future. Today is Museveni's future, but our future is a bit different from Museveni's future. When you read about what the world in 2040 or 2050 is projected to be, you would be extremely challenged and feel you ask yourself if you're even qualified to exist today. So I feel like the investment we are putting in political complaints and social dissatisfaction, it's okay to do that. But the thing is, the world is becoming extremely individualistic. So what energy are you emitting as an individual? And what energy should people take from you as an individual? What do you want to be remembered for? You've heard about the concepts like philanthropist. You've had celebrities change the direction of countries and causes of nations. The recent one, I think, was this footballer who changed, who got the government in the UK to change course on what they decided to do for school-going children in terms of feeding. You've had we've had a lot of these events. But what does that mean for our future and for our time? It means that whether we like it or not, power is shifting from the constitutional setting. Power is moving from the United Nations. It's coming to the personalities. Then the question is, what personalities do we have? What's the quality of the personalities?
It's where I was going to come.
Yeah.
That do you believe that as a generation we are shaped to the levels of being positively influential to the involvement of our today and our tomorrow as a generation?
No, and that's why I'm advocating and begging that the UCC revises our media content. I don't feel like we are equipped yet, but so far the individuals that we have that are probably making positive progress in that direction are quite reliant on their own character and their own attitudes towards life. But it's not enough. I think we have to invest in, be a bit deliberate about it, be it as in terms of government, in terms of laws and regulations and things like that. We have, you see, it's about creating a future, but in the present. And the only way to ensure that is being sure of what people you're creating. So you and I have to ask, what creates a Ugandan? If we can pull together the pillars or the instruments or the hands that birth a Ugandan soul or the soul of Uganda, if we can master what that is, then we can revise it and refine it as far and as often as possible in order to be able to ensure what I'm referring to as the individual power. Yeah.
Jack, in your submissions, bw'oyogera ogambye nti kituufu abavubuka bangi bavuddeyo nga baagala ebifo by'obukulembeze naye bw'otunuulira bye baleeta kibayise manifesto batunuulira ebiremye obukulembeze than byo bye balina bye bagenda okukola. Gwe bw'otunuulira ku bavubuka tulina kuba okay, we have much by legally emyaka gye giringa egyava mu bavubuka, but physically ne mu mbeera eriwo kati is the generation of voice in Uganda. Tulina Mirimu Katumba, bw'otunuulira omukyala Nancy Kalemba, bw'otunuulira ne Mayambala. Yeah, I think be bali mu generation time eno tolaba teri alina manifesto gyolowooza nti best suits the challenges of the youth today.
I apologize, but I don't think there is any. I mean, in what I judge to what ought to be the standards of our generation, I think they are mostly invested in the wrongs of history. Which history involves the Museveni generation, and that's a challenge in itself. Like, we can't keep invested in referring to what wrong the Museveni government has done, because our questions are different. Our generation's issues are different, and I don't feel there is no manifesto that, to me, of those four that you mentioned, that feels alive to our realities. The reality, what they call our realities, are things that are generally were determined by the Museveni government. Now they present themselves as the persons capable of correcting those mistakes, but that's not what they ought to be doing. That's not enough. That is, I think, in my judgment, I think that's supposed to be like 15% of what their manifestos should be. And I feel like, I think like 85% of their manifesto should be facing our future. And that is, that's why I think people lose to Museveni and they don't understand why. Because in his experience, I think he has lived to our evolution as a people, and at every stage he knows or sees what something needs to change into what. But we fail to see that detail about him. When he picks a microphone and raps, it's not because he enjoys singing or he enjoys poetry. It's because he's being alive to who we are. And that's still okay. But I have a serious challenge with people presenting themselves as young people, but they're invested in old problems.
Terevu, tukyagenda maaso ku nsonga za byabukulembeze, nsonga abamu y'omuyite ebyobufuzi. Jackie Batamuliza, mutunuzi wa nsonga za bukulembeze bwe tulina. Jackie, twagala kumanya okuva mu ggwe olowooza ku mbeera ne weevu eriwo munnayuganda naddala oyo awulira ayagala change waliwo omukisa ogw'okukyusa obukulembeze mu kalulu ka 2016 ka 2021 gwengeri gy'olabamu ensonga gye zitambula ne manifesto z'abantu bonna abeesimbyewo 11 osubirawo change of leadership from change the status quo.
I don't know if change of leadership means change of the person in the presidency. If that is what you're referring to, change of presidency, I don't think there are chances of Museveni losing. Yes, there is competition. That's real. That's real to everyone. But I think he still has an excellent grasp of what his place is and what his role is and what his message is. And I think his message is comprehensive. That's the difference between him and many other candidates. His message is not just Ugandan. It's not just, I think, personal. It's not just personal. It's not, it's cross-cutting. And I think that's something that's going to give him leverage over all the other candidates. Majority of the other candidates, like I said, they're quite invested in where he has gone wrong and what his government has failed to do. But there are people who are capable of reasoning beyond these complaints and failures. There are people who are able to point out and say this was not possible for such and such a reason. There are people who are capable of seeing and say this, it doesn't matter who becomes president, this is impossible because maybe our economics is not strongly founded as to get over it in the time that people assume we can get over it. Things like that. So I think there is going to be friction by virtue of the demographics. But in as far as the essence of Uganda's existence, Uganda's politics, and Uganda's life, I think Museveni is still leading in that aspect, in the appreciation of what Uganda is, where she is, the pillars that support her existence, and everything else that makes Uganda. I think is way more alive to every one of what those things are than any other candidate.
I wanted to ask you, as a political analyst, how do you see Uganda's politics in general?
I think Uganda's politics is it's healthy. I'm opposed to the thought that this some people call it burning. I think it's good, and I mean it's healthy that we have these exchanges. Yes, the outbursts may end in ways that we don't like, but these disagreements are supposed to make us. If the FDC or ANT or NUP or DP have dissatisfactions, the role of the NRM, which is like the party in power, whatever their outbursts are, they are forms of communication, that this isn't something we want, this isn't where we want, this is. And like my friend Mukose said, that leadership demands that we lead people out of those dissatisfactions. That's what it's supposed to be. And I'm hoping that as we evolve as a society, we will grow into that appreciation, that when people react in certain ways, whether it's anger or disappointment, or it's not. We don't have to take it as hate. We don't have to take it in a frictious way. It's just a voice that must be listened to. It was just presented to you maybe in a negative way, but it should be. It's a message from the person you're leading. It's a person from the person who is following you. So, in the structure of our government, we have to find a way of creating positive responses, which shouldn't be or don't have to be as frictious as the voice that came, but it can be a positive action towards the satisfaction of what the people towards the concerns that people raised. So I think we still have room to reason together. I think that's a gift that we as a country have. I think we still have room to reason together, but we have to create those platforms through which we communicate. There are many young people involved in the presidential race, for example, like Mr. Mukose mentioned. And they all claim or want to claim that they're representing the young people, for example. But what makes you think you're representing the young people? If or whatever you represent is derived from the old national problems, I don't feel the concerns of my generation in what you're saying, except that you want to rally me, the young person, behind you. I think that's wrong, and I think that's where they are likely to lose to the president. So, and that brings me to another characterization of our politics. It's very power-driven and less of leadership. There's minimal leadership drive. There's a lot of influence, authority, power. I think those three are very dominant in our political discourse.
Jackie, tolowooza nti omuntu okuba nti ali power driven kireetebwa okulembeze obuliko nti oli waba yasuubiza nti n'agamba nti omukulembeze obuzibu bwa Africa ye mukulembeze alwawo okulwa mu ntebe, naye najja n'akola ekintu kyekimu, era bw'otunulira bw'ogamba nti abantu badde nnyo entebe n'obuyinza, ng'oli naye awulira nti ekinyiiza bannayuganda kwe kuba nti n'ono akoze banne abamu bataakola. Era namulowooza agamba nti Museveni we yajjira we yasimbyewo mu 8 tebamukuba tiya gaasi, tebamusiba nga ali mu campaigns, tebamukwata kunakuba nominations, naye ate ku mulembe gwe ye agamba nti akulembedde bulungi. Ati bina birabise. Otolowooza nti abantu abo balina ensonga okuba nti bali power driven, era bw'ogamba nti politics kwa Uganda ali herefe nti era mulungi, otolowooza nti bannayuganda obanga b'okudadde?
No, nsaba okusonyibwa if that's what it sounds like, if I sound like ndi mukudala, but I have this thing about me. I like it that we be different, and it's very dangerous that we all be the same people. Extremely dangerous. So I hate the excuse that someone is doing something because Museveni did this, someone is doing this thing because Besigye did this. I'm totally against that. And why is that? You are your own person. Your responses to eventualities should come from a place that is leaderly. My use of the term power, I think, feeds into what you mentioned earlier, obufuzi. Omukulembeze ayinza n'okulembera omufuzi. Okiraba? Kati ffe bwe tudda wano ne tugamba nti batufuze bubi oba tulina abafuzi mu kifo ky'abakulembeze, kati naawe n'oyagala oluubirire okuba omufuzi. eyo ensobi esookera ddala gwe gy'okoze. And that's why I keep on referring to who is alive to our realities as a generation. And who is able to channel us away from the old problems. If we had a proper leader as a generation to be alive to everything that is real for our time, Museveni would be the last thing you want to worry about. Because our problems are not individualized. Like, they don't have
personal attachment.
Exactly. Our problems tebina we bikwataganidde na muntu n'abantu. They are technical, they are character, they are cognitive, they are intellectual, they are, and that's the world, that's the international system part of which is something we are very woven into, has deliberately designed this. This is why someone can be able to change a government's decision without going to the United Nations. Yeah? An individual, a singer, an actor, a celebrity, you've seen these things happen before. So our time is different. It's not even the power that some president holds. That it's not the power that's meant to create solutions. I mean, it's not the only thing. That is just additional. And I hope you guys are alive to all these things. Like, power has become
the number one priority for aspirants and candidates.
Yeah, which is very wrong for our time. We are meant to be invested in finding the difference between leadership and authority. And this constant reference to government, to president, it's getting outdated. Extremely outdated. And the earlier we learn what that means, the better for everyone, because that's our future. When you see us, obere wakane muzaddewo, ayina engeri gye yakuzibwa. You've heard about something called pop culture. You have lived with your mother or father for 20 years of your life, but then you can't culturally relate with them. That's how far out we are. We are physically together, but because the cognition has been transformed completely. So the thought that, or these convictions that we still have of so and so is responsible for how I am and whatever, maybe, but there's relativity to it at this point in time. A lot of relativity. And we have to figure out how we get people to understand this. What you're doing today, it's not UCC. But I think you are speaking to the country and influencing people in ways that probably UCC hasn't even thought about, much as yes, they might regulate you. So you're exercising leadership in a certain way, in the kind of leadership that UCC wants or hasn't even probably thought about or fathomed. It's the same thing with government. You get it? So there's just what the presidency or constitutional power is supposed to do, and then, I mean, in as far as our time is concerned, but there's also a lot of power that we the people are exercising?
Jackie, wenyini awo omuntu yeebuuza nti bw'otunuulira engeri ebyobukulembeze Uganda gye bitambulamu tuliotako olunaku lumu ne tulaba nti waliwo peaceful transition oba transfer of power given the fact nti ne mu campaign zimwokamwoka tulaba tiya gaasi tulaba mundu tulaba bivuyo bantu kuyiwa musaayi gwe engeri gyolamu ebintu osuubirayo olunaku lumu nga omukulembeze aliko ne watawa President Museveni naye omukulembeze yenna ng'akedde ku makya n'awangulwa oba ne wabaawo okulonda ng'oni waba agenze mu kkooti nga n'obujuzi bwaleese tewali mulamuzi bwasobola kugamba nti waliwo okubbya kutonotono naye tekukyusa byavudde mu kulonda gwosi olunaku olwo luli lutuuka ku makya nga waliwo obukulembeze bukyuka mu mirembe given the fact n'obusungu obuliwo kati ku bantu bannayuganda bwe balina.
I beg you not to be consumed by the moment. We have been through thicker and harder and darker times as a country. In the 1970s, in the 1960s, in the 1980s, we have been, nobody ever thought we could go to a poll. And therefore there will be a time when power can be transferred in peace. What we are experiencing today is majorly a socio-economic issue. That people are feel like their lives depend on an income, and because we still have less to share, or even that much that we have is being mismanaged by the and that mismanagement is being informed by the same feeling. All these things will change. We didn't know we could ever have a constitution, but we have a constitution. We've even had the deliberations on it and maybe revised it. Some people say it's been abused and what, but we have it. But there was a time we never thought we could. There was a time when people didn't think that we would have cars on the streets. So I beg every Ugandan not to invest themselves in this culture that we have, that we get lost in a moment. We get consumed and then become reactive and fail to imagine life post the event. It's a beautiful thing that we even have contestants. There was a time we didn't think we could ever have contestants. So yes, I strongly believe that time is not even far from now. We will be able to achieve that. It's just a political process. It's a process that takes social growth. It's a process that requires economic growth. It's a process that requires political maturity. And I think in one way or another we're working on all of those aspects. And as long as our society is able to be facilitated and be made to grow in that direction, all of these things are achievable. It might not be in the next 5 years, it might not be, but I strongly feel like in the next 10 years, I think we should have reached there. If we are careful how we handle, but if we don't get so consumed as to lose our country to the international forces that are upon, many African countries today, we can be able to salvage ourselves from running back to history, to where we are coming from, and instead focus on how do we concretize what we want to be our future. Yeah.
Tuza dakika nga 12 tuwunzike programu yaffe y'olwaleero. Ebinyuma biggwa byokya. Ensonga tuli ku nsonga nkulu nnyo, nsonga za bukulembeze mu ggwanga naddala abavubuka ab'omulembe guno. Tulina ebibuuzo mu dakiika zisembayo era nga ojja kuddamu by'onaaba osobodde. Ronald T. Nahurira, I want to concur with her that what transcends in society is as a result of the qualitative character of the people. Take a close look at the Asian tigers on how they treat some of these vices that have stagnated society, like corruption. A country like China will outrightly produce leaders like Xi Jinping, who looks at corruption as a sin, or even the quality of a leader like the late Lee Kuan Yew the founding father of Singapore. Cheers, Batamuliza. David Sekunya is just thanking you. Bobi Duban says if Jack don't understand what is going on in Uganda, she must go back home. If our grandmothers never driving cars, don't mean that we are going to do the same. Then we have the Museveni and group members can stop killing Ugandans and arresting them for nothing, and I don't understand which generals are, and do they have love or Ubuntu. There are so many. Then Semba Jopo from the islands is following you. From this one is Peter Chinji from Buvuma also. Then Abel Lutungu is just appreciative of your knowledge and brilliance. Then please can you ask Jack that Museveni to say that his ex-son was joking. Oh, I don't know what he meant. The true members, I think, let's first respond. Museveni, please honor the messages. I wish to. This one is not clear. Members who are abusing, please kindly, if you can't debate with issues and facts, rather just be a follower. Tumaimbi Senoman asks, how best can the people in the opposition convince Ugandans to vote them? This is because you have stated that Museveni stands chances of winning again, and to you a prophet of doom. So, yeah.
I'll answer that.
Yeah, then just make sure that all Ugandans this time around, no one die or arrest for nothing. And again, you look like then he destroyed the point by sounding insultive. But I think we can, hoping you've heard, apart from these other ones who are just saying thank you, your debate is good and they are enjoying. But unto you a prophet of doom.
No, there is no doom in a Ugandan being Uganda's leader. Okay, yeah, maybe in as far as policy and politics is concerned. But I think I gave my explanations, and my explanation was that he had. There's something about the opposition. I think Norman's question was really, how does opposition convince Ugandans to rally behind them? I think opposition has been opposing for long, and I think on, in my judgment, narrow view of things and convictive views, that they have closed themselves in a certain cocoon as to look like they're simply angry, dissatisfied. But it's not enough to be angry and dissatisfied. You've got to appeal to the people you're asking to vote for you. And by the way, they're not even supposed to just appeal to the people the people who are voting them. They're also supposed to appeal to the president that they deserve to be they deserve to be entrusted with power. Because when you're the president and you have probably witnessed the things that people older than us have witnessed, you're not just in a political context, rather in a political contest. You're in a place where you're every one of your decisions is not just about what the Constitution says. It's also about, it's supposed to have traits of the memory of where you're coming from or where you've brought the country from. I think that's the place where Museveni is, and people don't seem to acknowledge that. So when he watches the views of the opposition, which seem to be very invested in the thinking that if I have power, I would change this. Maybe power is not just enough. Maybe how you view certain peoples, maybe how you view certain issues, maybe how comprehensive you sound, maybe how invested you have been, matters. And if you haven't paid attention, you as an opposition, if you haven't paid attention to how appealing you are to the president, maybe you have been wrong. Not because he has to approve you. No, he doesn't have to approve you. But he also he probably needs to feel like, I did not protect Uganda up to this time. Now I'm using protect not in the sense of child protect. I mean like be able to hold things together. I mean, he could be in his mind thinking, I did not hold things together to take them lightly now, or to leave anything to chance. So if you in opposition are debating in ways that sound like they're leaving things to chance, that inconveniences him as well. So I think the constant mistake, one of the constant mistakes that the opposition guys make is that they assume the more angry people get at the president, the more chances they have. I think that's a very unfortunate view of things. And which I think informs many of their manifestos to just sound like where Museveni has gone wrong, I can do right. Maybe you're supposed to propose something beyond what Museveni has. Maybe you're supposed to see more things than Museveni has seen. But then we keep ourselves in the cocoon of if I can make people see how bad this man is, then I qualify myself. You're just multiplying negative energy, and that negative energy is going to poison. It's going to make the country stale, which doesn't help you when you come to power, because then even if you succeed at beating Museveni, when you come to power, you will realize that because you invested so much in looking for what is wrong, you never invested in designing or imagining how you have to create what's right. So time catches up with you. I hear these debates of people saying that the person who is coming after Museveni is going to have a hard time. The only reason you would have a hard time is because you never invested yourself in refining your lens, that you have been able to mentally go past Museveni. And for all the things we've come through, I think that there are even mistakes. Actually, anybody who is capable of being a leader, not a ruler like our beloved Prime Minister of Uganda said, anybody who is a leader, I don't know where you find time to be angry and negative on these poisoners. A leader is able to know why the other leader went wrong, or why the other leader couldn't get something right. It's if someone approaches me and tells me they are leaders, and then they are talking about how horrible, how bad, how this, how that someone has been, that's how you disqualify. For me as Jackie, that's how you disqualify yourself, in my view, because a leader is able to walk in another person's leader, and I think that's how countries like Tanzania were able to achieve that.
Abalungi abatulaba mutabagambye ebirungi bigwa byokya. Mujaguzo ebevuga e Buganda nolekera ewamwe ebunyolo. So kuba nti Buganda oba ogikoye naye munnange oba olina okudda ewamu. Embutu ne bwenyuma etya embwa tesula mu katale. Jackie Batamuliza ayina ensonga nnyingi. Tujja kumuzza kuba yatusuubiza nti ajja kulaba munaku okuba abeera busy kuge mazima naye munaku ze tunamusaba ajja kulaba oba ajja kudda nga bw'amaliriza lwaki twagala atuweeyo akagambo kamu bubiri akasibula abalabe baffe nammwe abali ku digital tulabe oba oli awo tewaliwo manifesto mu opposition yonna niwankubadde wengeri alamu ebintu President Museveni yabawangula dda niwankubadde bataddewo competition ne bugumu naye talina manifesto gyalaba nti however much yakuwangulwa naye gundi alina manifesto ennungi oba relatively esobola okuba okumakinga nti oba oli awo esobola okubaako ekitone nnyo kisobola okukyusa nga bwawunzika n'okusibula abalabe baffe.
Neyanziza nnyo okumpa omukisa guno okubeera nammwe ate n'okwogerera abantu baffe n'abatuwuliriza oba n'abatulaba. Like you said, I would always be willing to come and share what I think. What I would like to emphasize is that kitugwanira nnyo ffe ng'abantu bannayuganda buli omu okumanya nti oli mukulembeze wooli ate you don't have to be credited, you don't have to be praised. Just be sure, by virtue of for example, being on social media, oba ne wooli wonna, because these days people learn from others. It's not that we are still restricted in channels of influence of what we become or what we are, like it used to be with our parents, that you had to be them, you had to reflect what your mother was, you have to reflect what your father was. Now we are reflections of so many things, but you have to be very selective about what you have to be, because what you are is very much the business of everyone else around you by virtue of our association, because now we are into each other's lives. We are into each other, really. So I encourage every one of us to find that leader in you and let that leader come to life and good life. Invest in yourself selectively. Be a positive force, be a positive energy, because we are all nodes in a big network. I am a thinker. You're a host. He's a camera person. We are bringing a whole story together. We're talking about a republic. So how do we best be alive to all of that? So I really encourage, especially people of my generation, to invest in themselves, because where we are going, we are the gold of the Roman Empire.
We are the gold of the Roman Empire. Wenyini awo tugenda otandikira tunamukomyawo atunyonyole how can we better our goldness to build the empire. Nze Mukose Arnold Anton Mukose ne munange Lilian Luwedde omukyala abadde mu control room producer waffe olwaleero ye Elizabeth Musitwa, director waffe Jeremiah Mukiibi, driver waffe omukulu Kato Tumusiime, kwoteeka ne navigator waffe akola ku bya network okumanya eriwa ekwata wakubo kyeddungi Luta Ferdinand. Team ebadde nene n'abali ku kitebe abagezaako okwasaganya ensonga emu oba endala okulaba nti signals zitambula nga bwe zinotambula. Mwebale nnyo, mwebale ddala. Tujja kusooka wano tusaba Katonda Mukama abatukuumire, Kabaka wa Buganda ne Obuganda bwonna Mukama abukuume. Uganda n'Abannayuganda twagalane. Uganda ye yaffe, tetulina maka walala. Mwebale nnyo, mwebale ddala.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
The world is at a critical moment of providing innovative alternatives as a means to create change.
As such, we have created a not-for-profit alternative mobile digital platform as a way to promote space for freedom of speech and expression to the unheard voices.
We know you believe in the cause and you can further it more by contributing to its sustainability in forms of internet data, fuel, and any other support you deem relevant.
Please support us with your contribution to Equity Bank account number 103-5201-607252 under the name Alternative Digital, or our mobile money numbers 0702 900076 or 0783 047785. Alternative Digital, real issues, real talk.